is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back on our draft series for the Detroit Lions as we take a look at each draft pick for the Detroit Lions in 2022, and we break these players down. Today, we have finally broke into the top 200 of draft picks, but this one was also acquired via trade. So let's get it started.
With the 188th pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Malcolm Rodriguez.
Yes! Let's go! Let's go!
Welcome everybody to our video. Glad you guys are here. We're back with another one of these draft breakdown videos. I absolutely love doing this series. Hopefully you guys are enjoying it too. It seems like you guys are enjoying this. Just taking a look at each player individually, breaking them down, talk about what their role might be. I mean, we could be completely off on this, but it is fun to go through and watch these players. And a lot of these guys, you know, I had a little bit of a feel of them, but I didn't know them in the depth like I do now. So that's why this series is so great. Like I said, we're doing the same thing with undrafted players as well. We'll probably continue to sprinkle those in there, and then we'll hit it a little bit harder once we get through all the Lions drafted players. It's not like I'm rooting for anybody to get cut, but I would say there's probably a better chance that happens with an undrafted player rather than a drafted player. So that's why we're doing it like that. However, this is our third player that we're taking a look at for the Lions in this year's draft. And man, look, I don't want to spoil anything, but my goodness, hey, if you want to talk about an A+ pick, this might just be it. This just might be that pick for the Lions in this year's draft. So we're in to the top 200 now. We're taking a look at pick number 188, which was, as we said, acquired via trade. The Lions originally had pick number 181. They traded back a few spots. They picked up 188, which ultimately got their 7th round pick back, which was Chase Lucas, the cornerback out of Arizona State. We have a video on him and James Houston. But now here we are at pick number 188 with another linebacker. Now, the last one was like a linebacker edge hybrid, but a linebacker out of Oklahoma State. The guy was phenomenal last season. He was incredible last season statistically, tested out extremely well in terms of athleticism. That is Malcolm Rodriguez, the linebacker out of Oklahoma State. Malcolm Rodriguez is a line. This guy is huge, okay? He just looks different. You're like, dang, that dude looks like a little tank. Yeah, Malcolm Rodriguez is built. And here he is as a Detroit Lion. This is a 5-year player out of Oklahoma State that has had some incredible production, specifically this past season. So we're going to dive into it. We're going to break it all down. Let's start there, though. Let's start with the production for Malcolm Rodriguez. He's a 5'11", 225-pound linebacker. Yes, that is a pretty small linebacker. Now, in today's NFL, you do see this a little bit. Perfect example, Nakobe Dean. Now, it was said that he fell because of injuries, but also probably because of his size as well. But he's another 5'11" linebacker. So we see guys like this, but it is still undersized compared to most linebackers in the NFL. 5'11", 225. But last season, he was incredible statistically. The production that he put up, 129 total tackles. This is according to Pro Football Reference, which was number 1 in the Big 12. Also, 16 tackles for loss, which was number 2 in the Big 12. He had 3 sacks. He had 1 interception, 4 passes defended, and 4 forced fumbles. Now, to add on to that, the guy's had a lot of forced fumbles in his career. He had 7 in 2020, which was first in college football. All right, so he has a nose for knocking the football out and creating fumbles. And he also had a fumble recovery, one of the game I watched for a touchdown. So I'll throw that in there as well. That was the first game I watched. But you can see the production. It's outstanding. This is a 23-year-old player. He's been in college for a little while, but in the last 4 seasons specifically, because we didn't see him very much in his first year at Oklahoma State, the guy has had nearly 400 tackles. 4 seasons, just under 400 tackles. So you want to talk about nose for the football, and we're definitely going to see it when we throw up some of the clips, but absolutely. But let's talk about how we tested out. How did he score? Well, like we said, 5'11", actually came in at 5'11", 232. So a little bit more weight. That's not bad, but 5'11", definitely on the shorter side, okay? That's like my height. I think I'm 5'11", actually. Just went to the doctor. 5'11". That's my height at linebacker. That's kind of crazy. But I'm not built the same. No, I'm not 232. I'm not built like that. The guy had 36 bench press reps. Now that's 225 pounds. So just a little bit less than his weight. 36 bench press reps. That's incredible. I mean, I bet he did bulk up a little bit for, that test. But my goodness, it's actually a record. It was the best in the class. 36 bench press reps. That's disgusting. I don't even know if we have another player on the team that did that many bench press reps. Seriously. I don't know if we have another. I think Sewell did 30. St. Brown did a good amount, not anywhere near that. He did a good amount for a receiver, but my goodness, 36. That's incredible. And like we said, when you just saw that video the Lions put up, you're like, dang. He had a 39.5-inch vertical, which is outstanding as well. So you talk about the explosion there. He had a 10 broad jump. His 40-yard dash time was a 4.5240 with a 1.54 10-yard split. These numbers are outstanding. And in the agility side, he had a 4.13 shuttle and a 7.023 cone drill. So everything really athletically tests out extremely well. Where it doesn't test out well is his size and length. His arms are just over 30 inches. He's on the shorter side. That's where it doesn't test out well. But in terms of athleticism, checks every single box. Average linebacker is about 2 inches taller. It's sort of similar weight range if he does come in at 232, but he's faster than the average linebacker. He's more explosive than the average linebacker. He's more agile than the average linebacker when you take a look at just kind of the athletic scores. But with that all being said, that's all great, but I love the way that Brad Holmes put it. Like, you can find the size, weight guys, but it's the football players that can be difficult to find. You know, just the guys that are good at football. You know, let's just throw out the measurables for a second. Now, the thing is with linebacker, especially in NFL now, you can get away with some of the smaller linebackers, but at the same time, it is very scheme dependent with every position. It's very scheme dependent. Like, our last regime would have never drafted a guy that's 5'11". That's just not how they did things. It's not their style. For us, we did go a little bit smaller in terms of size for the linebacker position. We'll get into what his role could be for the Detroit Lions at the end of this video, but I just want to dive right into this man because he was definitely the most fun player I've watched. I mean, out of the three that we went through, the UDFA tackle, the linebacker out of Jackson State, the cornerback out of Arizona State, those guys were cool, but this dude was so fun to watch. Every game, there was stretches. There were like 4 or 5 plays in a row where he's just on top of everything. And you're like, oh my goodness, he's just taking over from the linebacker position. Seriously, he was a team captain last season, which is something that the Lions have brought in. You know, Josh Paschal, only Kentucky player to be a 3-time team captain. So he was a team captain for Oklahoma State last season. He is built pretty well. He's stocky, he's on the shorter side, and he's stocky, but he is extremely strong in the upper body and the lower body as well. So with that being said, let's dive right into this. Let's start off with the run defense for Malcolm Rodriguez. Then we'll get into the pass coverage and all of those things. And we'll sprinkle in athleticism traits and stuff as we continue to go. But his run defense, there are very few things to really poke holes in. Really, the areas that you poke holes in this player, as we said, is you poke holes in the build, the frame, the potential, things that he could struggle with. But as a run defender, he is extremely fluid, extremely smooth as a run defender. It takes me back to watching a guy like Chad Muma, right? Chad Muma, how instinctive he was as a run defender, getting on top of plays, just having a pure nose for the football, leading FBS in total tackles, that kind of thing. He falls into a very similar category. Now, he has a different style about him. Obviously, he's on a smaller side, but he's also much quicker than Chad Muma is. So there are rests where he gets in the backfield even faster than Muma does. And like we saw with James Houston, when he was playing off ball, you saw some reps of him blowing up plays. But this guy consistently is all over it as a run defender. So darn smooth. And there are stretches through games that you can just point out. There's Oklahoma, Notre Dame. Okay, for 4 or 5 straight plays, he's going to be extremely dominant against the run. He's going to make every single tackle for the next 5 plays. He has stretches like that, but it's just how smooth and how fluid he plays the linebacker position in terms of playing his responsibility, filling his lane, and he does it on both sides where if he's running from behind, chasing down a play, he'll beat everybody to the backfield. He makes plays from behind, but he also can handle the run when it's coming towards him. You see the ability to set the edge, get outside, but it's just about playing that responsibility. If the defensive end has the edge and he sets it, he's going to shoot that inside gap and he's going to make a play on the football, right? If he needs to get to the outside, if he needs to scrape down, get the outside, contain, force the play back inside, he does exactly that. It's just how fast he diagnoses this, which just sticks out immediately. You're like, oh my goodness, look how fast he's on this. By the way, I say sticks out a lot. I noticed that from editing. I'm like, dang, I say sticks out a lot. I need to think of something different. He pops out, all right? He pops out like little TJ. There are a lot of plays where he is clean between the tackles. He doesn't even get touched because he's so fast to the ball.
Now, we're going to talk about taking on blockers in a second, but how about avoiding blockers by making yourself a very small target for offensive linemen, making your hitbox very small like this, shrink up and make the play.
Getting to that side of the field, he is so smooth and has such a clean, I think the word they use is GPS, as a run defender.
Similar to the last play we just looked at, you have the read option in the backfield, edge is set, shortest distance to the running back, and you'll see how he makes himself a very small hitbox for this offensive lineman. Good balance because of how low he plays and makes the play.
Scenario where because of his size, he clearly is another player that's you want him downhill. If you want him at his best, downhill, downhill, downhill. Sitting back, read and react is not his style, doesn't make any sense for his build. And you will see that occasionally. He can get walled off by linebackers. If they get up on him, they get hands on him before he does. They can wall him off, especially if he's trying to force a run play a certain direction, like, hey, get the outside, he gets hit by a lineman, he can get walled off, and he just doesn't have the length or the reach to escape that. Even though he has tons of power, which we'll talk about, he doesn't have the length or reach or radius to escape that and make a play on the football field that lane. So he's all about playing downhill, shooting gaps, and just reading on the fly, playing extremely, extremely fast. But I love is the way that he approaches linemen and blockers, because you have to think he's playing downhill, right? So he's kidding these guys. So how does he do that? Well, those 36 bench press reps better show up on your film, and it 100% does. He is extremely physical. He uses the fact that he's lower to the ground to his advantage between the tackles, because he plays with extremely low center of gravity, which leads to very good balance. You'll see the same thing in pass coverage. Rarely on the ground. He can take big hits by offensive linemen that are, towering over him, but don't get underneath him because he's just naturally winning the leverage battle. He can take those big hits and stay on his feet, still make a play between the tackles. But I love the way that he approaches and attacks offensive linemen. He approaches like a bowling ball. That's how I would say it. When he goes downhill, he hits like a bowling ball. He tackles that way as well. But when it comes to taking on linemen, you see him get underneath the pads, obviously winning the natural leverage. You see a monster amount of push that he has in the upper body. 36 bench press reps show up. He can just launch into offensive linemen, into their pads, and just jolt them back and kind of try to escape the length thing, because he's not sitting back waiting. He's just coming downhill, get his hands on you first, just give that little pop. But at the same time, I love it because let's say there's an offensive lineman in his lane, right in his way, the running back's right behind him, right? He doesn't just kind of get walled off by that guy or have to go completely around. A lot of undersized linebackers, the Brian Asamoahs, guys like that, when they get approached by a lineman, they just go around him. It's like, okay, he doesn't have the size. He's done. He's just going to go around him. So between the tackles, you're like, okay, I don't know what we got there. This dude doesn't play like that. He's like, yeah, I'm 5'11", 230, so what? It's like that thing. You want to fight about it? It's kind of one of those things. He just goes low, puts his shoulder into the lineman, and just rocks him back. Gets that space and works his way to the ball. I think he does a very good job of taking on half the blocker. He's playing downhill, man. He rocks offensive linemen. Said in the comment section on Twitter, he looks like he's wearing shoulder pads. Guy looks like he's wearing shoulder pads walking around without shoulder pads on. How he uses that to his advantage to play that way and still be effective between the tackles, not getting consistently washed out whenever somebody gets their hands on him. Can he be washed out? Absolutely, but it doesn't happen constantly. See it for stretches. So here, I want to show some clips here. This is from Baylor. So you get this. So like 4 or 5 plays in a row, he's making the play on the ball. So here's a couple plays against Baylor. So first off, you're going to see this first run, he's going to contain the outside. You're going to watch him scrape, contain the outside. Defensive end's going to go inside. He's going to contain the outside, force this run play back inside. So he plays his role really well here. Doesn't get caught up inside, leaving a complete bounce out lane for the running back. Instead, he scrapes, contains, forces the run play back inside. One play. The very next play, something completely different. This time, the edge is set by the defensive end, jumps his play into the backfield, beats the offensive linemen who are coming out, gets into the backfield before the running back is even there, and makes a play. So you see the variation of, yeah, he's aggressive, but he knows when to tone it down. It's not one of these things where he's out of control, where it's like, oh, he didn't fill his lane because he's just attacking, and it's like, oh, we're gonna have to deal with it. So just what he'll do is, if he has outside, if he's at outside contain, here comes the running back, tight end comes over to block him, he's just gonna ram his shoulder into that tight end, get underneath him, and just try to bully him basically back to the running back. He doesn't have the length to try to, wall off, shed. He can't stack and shed. He needs to just go through you like a bowling ball, and that's how he plays.
The thing I put in my notes was forces cutback lanes, plays his responsibility, fills his lanes well. First off, just watch how fast he is on this outside contain. It's disgusting, but then at the same time, he can't wall off like he said, but takes on half the man, lowers his shoulder, forces the running back to cut back, and he makes this play essentially. He is there so fast. All right, now we just looked at a play like this, but I do want to show him more of the balance, how low he plays, and then setting the edge. So you see the pulling offensive lineman here. He's going to come down to stop the run originally, sees the lineman coming around, watch him scrape to the outside, take on this blocker. You see the power, you see the body control with the balance, and then make a play on the edge.
Probably sit here and just find clips after clips of him diagnosing a zone run blocking scheme, getting on the play extremely fast from the backside.
Another example of being the first guy to move, shooting his gap so fast gives the offensive lineman no chance to even get connection with him because he's so fast downhill and basically destroying this play in the backfield. I mean, look at this. First guy to move, and then you want to talk about athlete. Don't play with my guy. Come on now. Are you kidding me? Jeez.
We saw, flashes of that from James Houston, but just getting on top of it, whatever the run is. And look, in the Big 12, you got a lot of RPO offenses. So this is something that you have to be aware of, is all of these offensive line schemes, movements. He's really good diagnosing the offensive line scheme, and he's the first guy to move very often. But not only that, he ties that with being so explosive and so fast downhill that he's decisive.
Even plays like this, he shoots his gaps so fast, the offensive lineman has no chance to work to the second level and open up a big gaping hole. He shoots down so fast that he basically forces the running back to cut back right into his defensive tackle to make the play. So it doesn't show up on a stat sheet, but it's a great play.
He's the first guy in the backfield, even if the play's not ran towards him, and he's completely on the backside. With that being said, I do think he struggles a little bit with some of the mesh point. Now, obviously, height can play into this. Sometimes you can't see over guys. When you're 5'11", I can't see over those big offensive line once the play gets going, so I don't really know where the ball is against read options, things like that in the backfield, where a quarterback, is he going to give it to the running back? Is he going to keep it? Sometimes you just can't see that. It's like, okay, I can't see. I know where the blocking scheme is going, but I don't know if the running back's going that way or if the quarterback took it and left. Inconsistent playing the read option, things like that. I have another play that I just loved it, so I want to show it. Just look at this effort play. So, these are always awesome. Oh, here's another Baylor play, actually. Just the chase down speed you have here, right? So you have him initially working to the flat, take away the running back. That's great. Awesome. Here comes the quarterback. He takes off. Instead of just sitting on his guy, watch the speed here to run, chase down the quarterback from behind, and make a play. Talk about the forced fumbles. He has a feel for ripping the ball out, drawing it loose, and it's not as, to me, it didn't seem to be as much as I'm putting my shoulder where the ball is and just kind of ramming it out. Instead, it was more of, let me get my hand on the football and rip it out as I tackle. That's what it seemed to be more of. You saw it on quarterbacks. So if they got behind him and they're going to cock back, he would just kind of slap at the ball from behind. You saw more of that, just attacking the football with his hands rather than, putting his shoulder into the football. Tackler, very clean tackler with some limitations. And this is where the missed tackles lead from. It's still not like horrendous. It's still above average in terms of missed tackle rate. So it's not bad, but it does show up. However, he does tackle very consistently. He's not one of these guys, and he shouldn't be, as a linebacker, a 5-year starter. He better not be, but he is very clean. Wraps up, aims for the legs, the thigh. Sometimes he can get a little bit high, but there's no way in heck I could say that this is an issue. He aims for the thighs, gets underneath, again, playing low, and he just picks up guys. And the play against TCU I threw on Twitter, because I'm just like, that's awesome. He's playing off the backside, and he's just so clean with his technique that, you see a lot of guys here where they'll just put their shoulder down, try to ram into him, like, oh, lay the big hit. He picks him up off the ground because he just has that clean, smooth technique where go low, wrap up, make the tackle.
I always heard that wrestling transitioned well to football. Tell me that his form does not look like that.
Where he does have issues, again, is the length here, where you will absolutely see occasions, specifically out in space, where he can be a little bit limited in his range, where if he's one-on-one on an island in space, he can show major issues of trying to wrap up and reach guys because he really needs to get up on him. Gets a little bit to the side of him, he can't always reach it, so you'll see him kind of just fall. And this happened multiple times. I saw one on a screen against Notre Dame. Doesn't have that length to reach out and consistently make some of those tackles or finish. So a lot of times he has to get very close, which leads to the 12% missed tackle rate or whatever it was. Again, it's not a major concern, but it almost makes him, it makes him better between the tackles than outside the tackle box, if you ask me. I think he's more limited in terms of range outside the tackle box than he is inside the tackle box. It sounds crazy. Just talk about tackling in space, things like that. He just has a lot of reps of, I just get rolling and I'm on top of plays very fast. Even the screen here, right? We talk about pass coverage, and I'll just throw it in now. Look at this screen. So you have this, he's matched up on the running back. We'll talk about that more in pass coverage. They throw out a screen. Talk about the balance to body control, change of direction, very smooth mover, right? So he changed his direction, gets out on this play, makes tackle. He had like 3 straight plays against Notre Dame like this on the running back, where it was just like, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. It's incredible. It really is. Now, again, out in space could have some issues with receivers, things like that, because they're a little bit shiftier. But between the tackles, he is excellent when he has the sideline that he can use to help him, and he's able to kind of pursued a guy outside to the sideline. He's fine. It's just out in space, he has some limitations as a tackler. Play with a lot of power, and he can kind of just stonewall guys. And it's just a consistent tackling that you love. He's just not throwing his body at guys and trying to make the highlight play. Just consistent hitter that works his way, finds his way to the football, even when he probably shouldn't be there. And the second effort is there as well. If he is, for whatever reason, not in the play, you see him try to work into it and find a way to just at least get a touch on whoever the ball carrier is. Let's talk about his pass coverage. And a lot of athleticism is going to play into this, like hips, things like that. So we'll talk about it. But when you take a look at his pass coverage, it's not that he's not good at what he was asked to do. It's just that what you can ask him to do may be limited. Okay, that was actually kind of good. That might be a rhyme. Bruh. Let's talk about pass coverage a little bit. So this is an area where he is a little bit limited in responsibility, and you project him to the NFL and you say, okay, what is his impact on third down? You know, what can he really bring to the table on third down? You do have some questions because first off, the biggest one, obviously, with his size is certain coverage responsibilities you give him. Specifically, if I ask him to play man-to-man on a tight end, he's going to have issues because he is completely undersized. Does not have the length at all at the catch point. He's going to have arguably the shortest arms in the National Football League, right? So he's going to be extremely short in the NFL in terms of length, reach, and he does not have the height to match up with tight ends, which makes you limited. So they didn't do that for him. We'll talk about how he did match up with tight ends, but they didn't do that with that Oklahoma State. So there's those limitations. There's limitations in zone coverage. The area that he covers in zone coverage is limited. Doesn't cover a lot of area. Balls can easily get over his head, where he may be in not bad position, but he doesn't have the reach, doesn't have the size, the length to really make a big impact deeper. The deeper he gets into zone coverage. Underneath, he's fine. We'll talk about why. Things that I like. First off, again, this is kind of the athletic side, but you talk about the hips, how well he moves his hips, how well he changes directions. Extremely fluid, extremely fluid, and very smooth, can easily get depth, very light on his toes. You see him flip his hips, open up his hips, come downhill, work downhill, and you don't really see a hesitation or a pause there, right? If he's dropping on his back pedal, which I would say it could be a little bit high. You maybe want to see it get a little bit lower, but it's nothing bad. He can get depth if he needs to. And then when he has to break downhill, it's very smooth. He's laid some monster hits doing that. So I would say the hips, the feet, the movement ability, not really a question. And that's kind of the biggest thing with the linebacker. So that checks out. You see it in his testing scores as well. In coverage, they're giving him some limited responsibilities, as we said. One thing they like to do a lot, if he was playing coverage, was put him on a running back and say, hey, man coverage, you got the running back. Something that he did a ton. Now, we talk about some of the recognition, we talk about some of the play awareness. You would see reps where he's got the running back. If he breaks out this side, you got him if he goes out that way. And you would just see how smooth he would pass that off. Or, okay, running back went your way, you take him, I'm getting the quarterback. A lot of times they would do that where, okay, running back didn't come out, you're on the field, you rush the quarterback at this point. So there was a lot of those responsibilities. There's also a lot of responsibilities of, okay, running back didn't come out of the backfield, which was your assignment, go get the quarterback, right? So you didn't see a ton of zone deep drops that they would ask him to do, but he absolutely has the speed to match up with running backs. And this is something that Nakobe Dean brought, where this is one of the biggest matchups that an NFL offense can use is running back on linebacker. This is one of the biggest areas where you can be, a mismatch. And he's not a complete mismatch lining up one-on-one with the running back, because clearly he has the speed. You get him in a straight line, you have him run a wheel, you have him run into the flat. Easily has the speed to run with guys one-on-one, to run with running backs. Where he could be a little bit limited is when routes get a little bit more than just, okay, hey, it's a vertical, it's a wheel, it's a flat, it's an out. When it gets a little bit more complex, if you start seeing cuts and you're putting him in those assignments, this is where he starts to get limited, specifically in man coverage. He didn't always show that burst to make up for extra cuts. He was very smooth at his responsibility, passing guys off in zone coverage, communication defensively. You saw him move around really well. It's just he wasn't always effective at the catch point. Where they used him a lot in zone was underneath, within 5 yards. That's where they like to use him, not trying to get him too far down the field, but underneath, allow the catch, get down, make the tackle, kind of that thing, be secure. However, when you did see him in zone coverage underneath, the way that he played it was he would get physical with you very early in the route. So if he has a tight end comes into his zone, within the first few yards, he's going to get physical, try to really halt, try to slow down that route. You saw it, anybody came into his zone, slows down the timing, gets physical. You saw it against Notre Dame, get physical, and actually worked, where the one against Notre Dame got physical with the tight end, ball doesn't go actually does go the direction, it's thrown straight out of bounds because he takes it away early, throws off the timing, it's not there initially. Comes down, and he makes the play at the catch point. We're playing downhill when the pass was in front of him. You see him at the catch point, knock that thing away. So he's one of these guys that in zone coverage to be best suited within probably 10 yards, where things can happen in front of him, come down, make the tackle, come down, be disruptive at the catch point, that kind of thing. You don't want him super deep in zone coverage. In man coverage, he's limited. You don't want him man-to-man on a tight end. Can he take him into his zone? Yes, but you don't want him carrying a tight end 20 yards down the field, because for the most part, he's going to be a mismatch. Most tight ends are at least 6'3", 6'4". Get a guy at 6'7", it's a complete mismatch. That's going to be an issue. So plus, with his lengths, not super effective at the catch point. Does have the vertical, but he's just not much of a playmaker in that area right now, and Oklahoma State seemed to avoid it there. Now, he could be a little bit more of an upside player here than we know right now, but They didn't put him in a lot of those assignments. He allowed 30 receptions on 44 targets, 67 pass rating allowed, and he had 1 interception, no touchdowns. They just try to keep him out of those situations. So maybe there's a little bit more upside here than we think, but like Nakobe Dean, you have to be very aware of situations that you put him in on third down, which makes his third down value a little bit like, because we talk about third down as a pass down, it makes that value a little bit like, okay, what is he really going to do here? What do we bring to the table on an obvious pass down? We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second when we get to blitzing and rushing the quarterback. I like him on crossers, anything underneath, the drags underneath. You see the communication, and it's so smooth, right? Okay, here's my zone. I know where everybody else is. Look, cornerbacks here, other cornerbacks here, safeties are here. They have this third. All right, so I got this. So I'm extremely smooth that, okay, this is my responsibility. Let me get there. Let me not mess around with these other routes. Let me get to where I need to get to. That way, when a quarterback goes through his progressions, comes back to this read, you're locked on it. Underneath drags, anything like that, those passes he's fine in man coverage because he'll get in your pocket, be physical off the line, throw off the timing, and he'll just stay really tight where a lot of times quarterbacks won't even test it. So he's very good at passing off those. He's very light on his feet, good change of direction to open his hips. You see him take on crossers, kind of open his hips, pass him off, get in front. And when he does drop 10 yards into zone coverage, you see the ability again to just work downhill then, okay, there's an underneath crosser, let me get off of this, pass it off, and let me get downhill. So very smooth, just kind of limited in how much depth they would ask him to get. There's a few times he got deep down the field, but it wasn't very often. Now, he did have 1 interception against Notre Dame. The short zone drop, and he just has his eyes on the quarterback, but you just see how smooth he is, opening his hips, covering this, throwing near him, picks it off. Now, he didn't show much return ability after that, so I don't know if we want to miss our kick or punt return. I don't see that upside, but he got a nice little pick there, so it's a big play. It's just being opportunistic, having nose for the football, reading the quarterback's eyes, knowing underneath in my zone, I'm going to drop, I'm going to get some depth. One way that he could improve here in underneath zone, he needs a really close space to be effective at the catch point, is working better to close that space. There are some times where he'll leave a little bit too much yards between him and the nearest receiver trying to sit in his zone. He'll leave a little bit too much space to him and the nearest weapon. When the ball goes there, he doesn't have the reach or the length to be impactful at the catch point. Talk about extra, cuts, things like that. This is where you can get in trouble because he will overset routes, arrow routes, things like that. You see the body control to play through traffic, avoid receivers when they try to set screens or picks on him. He just has that fluid body control, but he can overset on routes like an arrow route out of the backfield of running back in man coverage where he'll really jump on the flat and then they cut back inside and he's overset and he's beat to the inside. One of his biggest issues right now, as smart and as intelligent he is at getting his eyes to the football, nose to the ball, sometimes not as bad as others, sometimes much better than others, but he definitely has an issue of biting play action. He bites very hard on play action, and it's trying to get to the backfield and make a play on the football. So play action did get the best of him a few times, not every time.
Now, this play was really well done by Baylor, and you could see him try to get his eyes on the wide tight end here, but he really sells this blocking fake as he works up to Malcolm Rodriguez and just gets him to lunge there, and then he has to try to recover.
The final thing we got to talk about is rushing the quarterback because, this kind of ties into what you could be on third down, but also early down as well, because sometimes you got to blitz the quarterback. And like we said with his assignments, sometimes it was, okay, they're passing the football, you got the running back, okay, running back didn't go out, rush the quarterback. It was kind of one of those things. It's quick to react to that, and I liked it because anytime he attacked the running back, he attacked it just like a lineman. I'm going to put my shoulder down, just run through you like I'm a running back. And man, he delivered a lot of power that way. So I enjoyed watching it. As a straight up blitzer, like on third down, or they know you're blitzing, he does, again, a really nice job with the first acceleration, but also just trying to take on half the man, take on half the lineman, split the lineman, not take on the full thing because otherwise I'll get walled off. There wasn't any noticeable, like, oh, there's a pass rush move. He's not going to have that. There's very, very little upside of he's got pass rush moves. Could he be used in stunts? Yes. Because you get a lineman to set one way and then he's able to take on half the man. He's fine because he plays with that power. He'll deliver his shoulder right into the lineman, give him a little step back, and he'll split it, and he's super fast downhill where he has 3 sacks, 26 pressures. So fast. There's this one against Oklahoma where defensive linemen, they open up this lane by how they attack, and as soon as it's snapped, you see how fast he shoots this, where quarterback has no chance whatsoever. You'll see him get sacks on screens, which rarely happens. He's just so fast to the backfield, where if you don't get a tag on him, oh, he's way too fast back there. But he doesn't have much, it's not like he's going to beat you as a pass rush moves. He's more of a between the tackles type of pass rusher, much less effective seemingly outside the tackle box, but between the tackles, you could rush them that way, which is how the Lions used their linebackers last season. So it gives him potential on third down to blitz because he can do that, or take the running back out of the backfield. So you can do those kind of things with him. It's just limited in terms of coverage depth that you want to ask him to get. Basically saying if he didn't win with that acceleration, split half the lineman kind of thing, catch you off guard, then there wasn't much after that. It was like, okay, the play has stalled out. He may just put his head up and try to see if anybody comes out of the backfield or spy the quarterback. After that, there's basically nothing that happens because he doesn't have a pass rush move. If offense lineman latches onto him, nothing's going to happen. He's done. So, and that's the case with most linebackers. So he's not like the rare exception to the rule. This is normal, but it's just something you got to point out as a pass rusher. But he is impactful. 26 pressures. He is very impactful. Third down, his upside, you can use him on third down. He has potential to be a 3-down backer, kind of like Nakobe Dean. He blitzed him a ton. He would be a similar thing. Hey, blitz him between the tackles, use him on stunts if you want to. If you have him in coverage, you're probably going to want to play a running back or play underneath. So in third and short, fine. Third and long, probably not where I want him. Unless I'm blitzing him, which the team would then know, so it's kind of hard to throw you off. I can use him in zone, but it's not ideal. There is third down capabilities, and we say third down, we say obvious passing downs, deeper third downs, not 3rd and 3. On 3rd and 3, I want him on the field. 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, they would take him off the field at Oklahoma State sometimes. So the third down capabilities may be limited. Special teams, he's going to have tons of upside. So if you want him on special teams, I got to believe he's going to be a ridiculous playmaker on special teams. It's the role. I think it's simple. It's going to be hard to keep this guy off the field. He is day one ready. He could play game one. He could step in, and I think what's so cool is that as a run game guy, you don't want Alex Anzalone taking on a ton of blocks, but Alex coming out was like, well, he's versatile. He can play every spot. He can line him by the edge, move him around. What's so cool about Malcolm Rodriguez is, as undersized as he is, as a run defender specifically, it's hard to go wrong with any role you put him in, whether that's Mike, Sam, or Will, because of how the 4-3 style we play, and we saw it last season with Jalen, Alex, and Derek Barnes, how they did it, and then when Jalen got hurt, it was Josh Woods, Derek Barnes, and Alex Anzalone. We just kind of moved it around. He could play either outside linebacker position. He could honestly play Mike if he needed to, but he could play either outside linebacker position where he could handle a run that comes his way in a 4-3 style. He sets the edge much better than a lot of people, even though he doesn't have the ideal length. He has the strength, the power, the low center of gravity, and the intelligence to do it. So probably not ideal based on his build, but he can do it. And off the backside, of course, he can be very dynamic there. So it gives you flexibility where you don't have to keep switching around your linebackers based on, hey, what's the strong side? Switch over. Like, you don't have to do that. You can kind of keep him in a spot. Ideally, probably playing the weak side, but you can honestly have him do either. In a 4-2-5, I wonder, because, here's the thing about 4-2-5. We say sub-package, so that means it's a pass down. Not necessarily. We played 4-2-5 on first down and 10, for a second and 10. It's just the NFL now, it's basically your main position is your sub package. So for us, we played a lot of 4-2-5 looks defensively. His role in 4-2-5, I want to have him on the field. I like the pairing with him and Alex. Coverage is not really there as a super high upside, so I'd like to have him with a guy like Alex that can cover well. Have to try to avoid matchup issues there. This is a guy that I think you want on the field. You want him on the field as much as you can, specifically on early downs. He's a very good early down player because he's not much of a liability anywhere on early downs. He's dynamic, he's great against the run, and he can play enough coverage where you're fine, and he can blitz him. So he brings a very deep package on early downs. Pass downs a little bit less. Had to be a little bit creative with him, but in a 4-2-5, he can be on the field. You just have to get a little creative with how you want to use it. I think of a Nakobe Dean. I'm like, this is like our Nakobe Dean in a way. But one thing about Nakobe is, I'm not saying he's better than Dean. Dean was killed by offensive linemen. Not to the Brian Asamoah level, but he struggled with offensive linemen. He got picked up. It was in trouble. That should not be the case with this Lions defense. The goal is to play downhill. Even Levi said, this is what we wanted when we came here, so we're all excited that we're now doing this season, unlike last year. So it's going to fit his strengths. He's going to play downhill, but he can handle offensive linemen much better than... I don't even know if I've seen a guy at 5'11", 230 that can handle linemen like him. Seriously, it's impressive. The thing is, you got guys like James Houston. He's going to need time to me. You're trying to figure out what he is. You're trying to figure out, is he an edge? Is he a linebacker? Is he off ball? Either way, probably off ball, he's going to need time, right? And that's okay. You're a lot of times you only have 2 linebackers on the field, so he's going to need time. Alex Anzalone can play now. Derek Barnes, we'll see where he's at. I'm assuming they're going to ask a lot of him this season. Outside of that, you have the Chris Boards, you have the Jared Davis. Not really sure where they're at. James Houston's. Look, I understand Malcolm Rodriguez has not played a snap in the NFL, but I do like his day one impact potential as a 5-year starter. We have a lot of guys like that. Chris Board, he has a pretty high upside as a coverage guy, former safety, playing linebacker from the Ravens. High coverage upside. He just hasn't played a ton outside of playing on third down. Almost like maybe maybe the opposite of what we get here with Malcolm Rodriguez. But obviously that pairs well together because, you know, they play off each other's strengths. We just have a lot of those kind of guys in linebacker position where you're like, okay, what are we going to get? I think Sean Hamilton could be a pretty reliable linebacker for you coming in to last season. If it wasn't for the injury in training camp, he looked really good. So you have a lot of that, but I think Malcolm's going to have an impact this season. Pretty big impact defensively for a rookie. One of the bigger impacts, I think, on this team as a rookie. I'm going to give this an A+ grade. Seriously, he's the most fun player to watch. Well, I think he's limited and you have to be smart with how you utilize him. To me, he's an A+. I mean, this guy is going to come in, impact us. The fact that you got this in round 6, like we got St. Brown in round 4, is that, I think it was round 4, you're going to get an immediate day 1 impact player at a position that you needed help. You needed to get better at this position. You're getting an immediate day 1 impact player in Malcolm Rodriguez. That may not start because it could be Barnes and Alex, and we'll see in 4-3 sets. I think he'll probably start. But this guy can plug and play day 1 and be impactful for us in round 6. I should have stuck to what I was saying before the draft took off, saying the linebackers. I don't think they're going to value linebacker extremely high because then I would have been accurate with how I predicted my mock draft. I got caught up in the Nakobe Dean stuff. But this is a beautiful draft pick by the Lions. It's an A+. No question, A++. This may be the Lions' best value of the draft. We'll see. We'll get through the rest of them. But as of now, this value is ridiculous. He's going to help us right away. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on Malcolm Rodriguez. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.